Good morning and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG review. I am DM Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video is going to be somewhat of a new feature for my channel. I have done response videos before, but very infrequently. What I'm planning on doing is doing more of these a little bit more often at least. And so today's Unscripted and Unchained response video is a response to Reactionary Principle Gaming. This is Mr. Max Boyven. I hope I pronounced that right. And his statements or his framing of what 4D role playing is. So if you're at all if you're at all connected to the circle of OSR, content creators, whether it be on YouTube or elsewhere, um, there's always this discussion of what is role playing and what are some of the best approaches to role playing or examples of role playing. Sometimes some of the commentators will come in and they'll say, "Well, this is not what role playing is," and everything. And so I was recently introduced to this concept of 4D role playing, but I wasn't quite sure exactly what the definition was until I came across Mr. Max's video. So his short video, which I'm going to go through and share with you, and then give my commentary along the way with it. So very Shoner-esque way of doing it. Which, like I said, is not something I typically do, but I might actually do these a little bit more frequently. So now I've also been invited to join a Discord group, and this invitation came from 28mm RPG. Again, another individual that kind of travels in the same circles as many of us do in the OSR, especially within the creative community, content creating community on YouTube and elsewhere as well. And that's where I came in to this Discord. Thankful for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to engaging in it, and so the RPG Crusade Discord server seems to be, at least as of now, dedicated to advancing 4D role playing. And so I'm going into it as very much a novice in the concept of 4D role playing. Although once I got through Max's video, I was like, oh, okay, that's what they're calling it. So, but I still have far less recent experience playing as a player in a role playing game than I do running role playing games. I'm virtually the forever DM or GM, and so the more opportunities that I have to actually play games and hone my skills as a role player, I'm certainly going to welcome the challenge in doing so. I'm also hoping to gain some helpful tips in how to promote a higher degree of immersion and engagement in my game sessions as well. And that's something I do want to point out is that you can have various levels of engagement that that look different, and there's no valuation that I'm going to make in saying, well, this is less than that, other than the level of engagement. And that's where I'm going to point to Max's view on the various levels of D role playing, whether it be 1D, 2D, 3D, and then 4D. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, and we'll take a look and listen to what Max has to say. And let's see, I want to go full screen on this. All right.
Hello guys, Mr. Max here from Reactionary Principle Gaming, and today I wanted to talk a bit about the concept of 4D roleplay. We throw the term a bit, around a bit lately, with Crispy and GM Rick from 28mm roleplay for 28mm RPG and Big Bad RPG and stuff like that. And we talk about this concept of 4D roleplay, but I realized I didn't really talk about it, what I mean by that, on my channel. Maybe I didn't mention it in live stream in the past, but I never made like a dedicated video about it. So this is it now. Especially now I have one of those examples, like which I label role playing in the fourth dimension, which was a traveler game run by Rick from 28mm RPG channel, right, with Crispy and Big Bad. Was a lot of fun. I encourage you to go watch it. I think it's much more watchable than a lot of actual play out there. And now we're about to do another one with Phil the Trail. Is gonna run Werewolf the Apocalypse game, one shot, for GM Cody, Crispy, and myself, right? And we're gonna try to run it and to play it in the 4D way. That's gonna be on Friday. I'm gonna broadcast it on my channel, and Phil is gonna start his channel with that game. And I assume Crispy is gonna broadcast it on his channel as well, probably GM Cody as well, I don't know. So, what do we mean by this 4D roleplay? And I have to recognize, yes, the term is maybe a bit pretentious or braggadocious, and it doesn't have anything to do with space-time continuum, right? It's just like, it's more about like layer of engagement in the game and how serious you take the game.
All right, so that's the first spot that I'm going to interrupt into. So yeah, he's definitely going to speak about the different layers, and I think that's the best way to think about what is the difference between 1D, 2D, 3D, and then finally 4D role playing. Um, the pretentiousness issue might come from if you start falling into the idea that these different layers, one is better than the previous one, and I'm going to go, out on a limb here and say that that the only one that you can really uh, state that is the lesser of the other three is 1D. And when you hear how he describes it, hopefully you'll see, where I'm coming from when I say that, yeah, that's probably the entry level role playing, at your table, and you wouldn't want any player to stay at that level for even more than, two or possibly three sessions. By the third session, that 1D player should have advanced already to at least 2D, if not even 3D at that point. So I'll let Max continue.
And I also need to say, whatever layer or whatever dimension of engagement in the hobby you are at, if you're comfortable there, that's fine. You can stay there if you want. Care, that's your own time, that's your enjoyment, it's your game. Get involved with it all you want, right?
Yeah, but what he's not saying here is whether or not he would allow those lower level of dimensions remain at his table. And I think that's really important to actually say. As I put it, I wouldn't allow the 1D player to remain at that level for more than three sessions. At that point, I would say like you really do have to move forward with your ability.
So, what are those dimensions that we talk about when we talk about 4D that imply like 1, 2, and 3D as well? So, let's talk about that. The 1D player is basically the one that doesn't take the game very seriously, is just there to hang out with friends, They're gonna make a lot of like out of character jokes, out of like random 80s reference. Maybe some player is gonna be scrolling Twitter while it's not his turn in combat and then not be too sure what's happening. They So that'd be like the 1D, right? Doesn't take the game too seriously, doesn't really know what's happening. The player are just there to roll dice, hang out with friend, whatever.
All right, and I pretty much agree. It's the player that remains too silent throughout the entire session as well, or it's a player that you have to remind them as a game master. Um, what is your character doing? What is or even worse, it's your turn. Well, what are you going to do at this point? Um, I certainly prefer all of my players to know what's going on, whether it's their character's turn or not. That's kind of a very low bar, I think, in their level of engagement is to know what's actually going on and to be prepared to respond not just to what the GM's controlled situation is, but also what the other player characters who might have an initiative, advantage over their character, what those characters are doing, because that should alter what his or her character is going to do later in the sequence if they're analyzing what's going on in this situation.
The 2D player or the 2D game session, the player would be a little more serious. They would stick around, focus on the game a bit more, and but they would cut out like the out of character talk a bit, like the joke and stuff like that. But they would still have like ask out of character question, and like asking the player when we said the player asking question to the GM, they do that a lot, right? They're gonna ask, oh, how big is the door? Or can I do this? Can I do that? Is there X in the room, right? That'd be like the 2D player. It's one we see quite a bit, right?
All right, so if a player is asking for greater amount of description for the space that they're in, let's say they're in a room, and they're asking that question. They ask, "Well, how big is this door?" Um, that isn't on the player for asking that question. That's a legitimate question to ask. That's on the GM's description. All right. The GM should be describing those kinds of details to the player. The DM should be giving all five of those senses when the player characters enter into a space, and tell everyone this is what features that they see. Here is a door. It's kind of important to know, if it's a tiny little door, like a door for like an animal entry, you know, uh, that's a detail to be revealed, right from the right from the get go. Um, so when players are asking those kinds of questions about description based questions, number one, they're legitimate. Number two, if they are occurring frequently, that means that the game master is not providing enough information about what the characters are seeing, hearing, smelling, feeling, and whatnot. All right, so I'll let him continue on.
The 3D player learn to not ask questions to the GM. He's gonna stay in character throughout the whole session and in the 3D game, right? And so now, if you want to know something about the world, he's gonna have his character interact with the world, or he's gonna have his character ask a question to an NPC in the world, right? So he doesn't have to ask the GM about it. So you don't say, "Oh, is the door locked?" You say, "My character or I go and test if the door, see if the door is locked." Right now, so now instead of like saying, asking a question to the GM, you describe what your character is doing in the world, right? Because that's how your character would gather this information. You want to know if the door is locked, you go try it, right? So that'd be like 3D play.
All right, and I agree with him pretty much there. Um, I mean, he doesn't explicitly like mention, at this point, at this level, if there's any kind of um, out of character banter. Actually, he's saying they're in character the entire time, um, and I don't know if that is very realistic, um, especially when the player group becomes very very comfortable with each other. So that's number one. Number two, on that same grounds, it's it's not meant to be a chore when you're sitting at a table, especially in person. When you're sitting at a table with with everyone that you might be very very comfortable with, that you're going to stay in that 110% immersed condition of just being focused on the game. Things are going to happen, things are going to come up, and to say, oh well, we're back to 2D now, as soon as there's one one disruption, one outburst, one whatever that interferes with the actual gameplay. And questioning comes along the same way. Is that if there's a particular issue where where it's unclear what what a character's ability actually is, um, then that might require a clarification and just a very brief stop, and addressing it, and then going back into the role play again. That should not break your immersion as an experienced player or game master. That's a thing that hopefully it rarely comes up during gameplay, but if it does happen from occasion, and I've made this argument before, an experienced game master and an experienced role player will be able to step out of that immersive gameplay, address some kind of an issue, and then jump right back into it again. And it should be like a switch, like it's just on and off switch where you can very easily quickly change gears and get right back into it again, and as if that moment never happened. All right, and that comes with experience, and that is a more 4D ability, let's say. So that's a higher end of third dimension, and probably a minimum standard of fourth dimension, is that you are able to shift in and out of role playing, and out of immersion, and then get right back into it again, with very very little true disruption in the flow of everything going on, because things happen sometimes, right? It's like real life happens sometimes, and so that's a definite immersion breaker, right? Is if if someone rings at your doorbell and you have to, even if you're in person, and you have to go and address what's at your door, and then you come back in, you should be able to shift right back into play mode again, and that interruption should fade, and be unimportant moving forward.
And that's pretty good. If you can achieve that, that's a good level to be at. You're gonna have a good session. The next dimension on top of that, the 4D play, which we're trying to achieve now and we're focusing on, is it's all of the 3D implication But now also the player are not afraid or dare to, and you need to have like a 4D table, a 4D GM, and a 4D session for that. But now the player are also willing to be co-creator of the world and integrate, like manifest stuff that makes sense, right? You have to respect the setting, you have to respect the tone and stuff like that. But now, you're walking on the beach and you want to find a piece of driftwood, right? Well, the 1D way, you would just make joke about it and stuff like that, right? Nothing would get done. You would wait for the GM to tell you what you do and to roll dice.
Mm-hmm.
The 2D way, you would ask the GM, "Oh, is there a piece of driftwood on the beach?" And then the GM would say, "Yes." "Okay, I go pick it up," right? That would be the 2D way. The 3D way, you could say something like, "I'm on the beach and I look around for a piece of driftwood." And then the GM would say, "Yeah, there's a big log that came adrift." That'd be the 3D way. The 4D way, you assume that you're on a beach and that it'd be normal for it to be driftwood there. So you can just say, you can skip the step of the interaction with the GM and just say, "Well, I'm on the beach and I'm going to pick up a big piece of driftwood that came on the shore." Right? And then you can go straight to what you want to do with that driftwood. So that'd be the 4D way, and I think it's much more direct, much more cinematic. It keeps the flow of the game going much faster. You can accomplish much more in a session, hopefully. And I think it's a very fun way to play. It's a very interesting way to play. So I'm very excited for this werewolf game. It's gonna be on Friday. Keep an eye open. I'm not sure of the time. I think it's like 8:30 Eastern time, something like that. I'll keep you updated. So I hope this was interesting. Take care, guys. Have a good day.
Okay. So let me just get back to here again. So I mean, very interesting video. I really did enjoy it. I felt that I learned at least what what Mr. Max's perspective is on the various levels of dimensions of role play. Um, Pretty much agree with him. I'd say probably like 80 to 90% all the way through. As I clearly pointed out, where I kind of disagree on, or I think that um, there's a different focus point for you to look at when some of those immersion breaking instances happen, like asking the question, well, what is the size of the door? That is a legitimate question, and that's something that the game master was really responsible for doing, and not so much the player character, the player. Players going to ask questions when they're unsure about something, and so as the game master, right, you are mastering, you are managing the game. All right, and I've had some people, some people say that they like the term manager better, including Frank Metzner, was saying that he actually likes the game manager title better, and not for PC reasons or anything like that. It's just like the role is that you're managing the table, and that I think falls within that category of management. You have to manage the sensory inputs that the players are receiving, for their characters to respond to. And so, if the player is asking what their character sees, smells, hears, or feels, from the environment, then that's something that the game master missed in pointing out. Not an issue of the player asking that question. They wouldn't ask that question if they knew. All right. Now, if the player is asking a question about what their character's capabilities are, that's all on the player. The player should never have to ask the DM or the game master what their character can attempt to do, or what their character's abilities are to attempt to do something. That's on the player. The player should be saying, "This is what my character is doing," and then let the game master decide, do they have to roll for it, hopefully as infrequently as possible. And that's something that Mr. Max did not bring up. He did not bring up that along these different dimensions, the game master should be implementing fewer and fewer dice rolls to do certain things. You always have to bring it through your own filter and ask yourself as the game master, you know, is this something that the failure of it is possible, or is this something that the player character has done 1,000 times and they really don't need to roll? Is there an extreme benefit if they are really successful in a role as well? And I've basically come across instances where I do have the two possible extremes, and basically the player is only rolling to see if they roll a 1 or a 20. Everything else in between is a success. All right. It's just, do they on the 5% chance side, where they did they fumble the roll, a complete lack of success, even doing something mundane. That would be like, you fall over by accident tying your shoe and you've broken your ankle. Doing so, does it happen once in well, in that case it's happening on a 5% chance in 100, which is probably a little bit too much, but you get my point, is that there should be, going from one dimension to the next, a reflection of there's going to be fewer and fewer instances of dice rolling. I also would warn against the idea that when you get to that upper level of 4D, he used the term cinematic, and and I know that this is a debate that goes on back and forth, is just how much cinematic are you really looking for? Because I think that you fall into the trap of thinking that I'm producing a scene in a television show or in a movie, and that's the kind of movement through that scene that we're looking to recreate. Is and to me, that is removing the game element from role-playing games, and the game element should still be there. You're not looking to recreate a television or a movie experience. You're looking to streamline a gameplay experience, to the point that yes, it is running smoothly, but you will have some dice rolling to determine outcomes, or to create a variable that no one, including the game master, can truly fully anticipate. And so that is an important part of gaming, and it's an important part of role playing, because now it forces you as the player to have your character respond to an outcome that is not fabricated. Because I think that if you are looking for that true cinematic and or solely cinematic kind of experience, that's going to create an issue where the game master is fabricating circumstances, to match that smoothness, or to promote that smoothness of the scene going forward. And that was a conversation that I got into on the Discord one of my first posts on the Discord, because the discussion was about a scene. And when I read it, and I'm just going to look for it up here. Let me find where I put it. It was in the training room. So the question came up, and this came up from initially 28 millimeter RPG. This is his Discord, so he really starts almost every discussion area anyway. But the question of scene came up, and a scene is one moment. I'm reading from Big Bad. So Big Bad is another member of this group here. So Bad mentioned a scene is one moment, one place. If you change locations or time skip, it's a new scene. Um, that's how I would define it, which I find it's a scene, right? So when it is time to change scene, when the juice has been squeezed from the current scene at some point, we're just going in circles and nothing new to add. It's time to move on. All right. And I pretty much agree with that. Um, I'm just pushing back a little bit on the use of the term scene, because again, that makes it sound like you're doing a television episode or a movie scene. And I um, I look at it in a slightly different way. So this is what I said in that. To me, a scene is a short form of scenario. An adventure is a series of linked scenarios, a campaign, a series of linked adventures. Yes, I am gamifying this concept. I am, possibly reintroducing the idea that this is in fact a game. And I'm waiting to see any responses if I get any pushback on it, but I continued here. I like to create scenarios that encourage player interactions through their characters, knowledge, skill, and even their traits. So I place it fully on the player to know what their character is able to do. I create that separation between player knowledge and player character knowledge, and I reinforce that separation on my players, you know, up until they no longer need that reinforcement. All right, and I have found that kind of clicks in around the 6 to 8 week, time frame. So by that eighth week or so, I no longer have to remind my players that their character wouldn't know that, even though they, as the player, does. And so that reminder disappears at that point. So, I create, or I look to create these scenarios where the players are encouraged to interact, you know, using their character's knowledge, skills, and traits. Every scene should have multiple opportunities to interact for the most, and for most of it, all of the player characters, right? Sometimes a scene will be more geared towards a particular set of skills, traits, or knowledge of an individual character, but these should be infrequent and well distributed across all PCs. The bigger challenge is to connect those scenarios into a coherent, large tapestry that is the dungeon, the wilderness region, or the broader event or time period that you're looking to create that overall cinematic, all right, if you want to call it that. They have to work. So your individual scenarios are going to start linking to one another. At the same time, leaving enough flexibility for the players to go in the directions that you did not anticipate. That is where improvising comes into play, and the GM must learn to be mentally agile in his or her response to those players taking it in a different direction. As I said earlier, if you remove the gaming aspect from what you're doing here, then you're going to end up fabricating um, fabricating the scenes rather than letting them organically happen, and then you improvising and responding to the player character actions rather than them following a predetermined path. Um, Another challenge is to be ready for the inevitable instances when a scene you have prepared is completely avoided by the players through their characters' actions. Again, improvise and move on and keep the action going forward. So to get back to that sense that Big Bad was talking about as far as when a scene ends, and he says once you've exhausted all of those things, I agree to the extent that um, once you've described a particular room that the characters are in, and the characters have basically done everything that they could possibly do in that room, um, then you will hint to them, or they will just know intuitively, all right, we've done everything that we need to do in here, or that we believe we can do in here, but there's another door over here now, so we're going to go into the next scenario. And that next room should not be, completely devoid of what just occurred in the previous room. It should be in some way connected, and then the players move on into the next scenario, where they're going to be faced with different senses coming to them, different challenges coming to them, or even if it is a continuation of the previous room, um, it should never be exactly the same. Otherwise, your scenes or your scenarios become too one note, and you want there to be a building up of some kind in order to do it. Um, so that's pretty much it. I mean, I certainly welcome any discussion, especially from, the individuals that are more involved, with this concept of 4D role playing. And I really look forward to playing in your games as a player, and then hopefully I can grasp really what you're looking for in that 4D role playing, and I welcome the challenge. So hope you all enjoyed this video. Mr. Max, absolutely welcome you to come in and point out where you think I'm right or wrong, or whatever, and you're certainly welcome to respond to this video as anybody else's as well, and we can cross respond to one another across our various channels as well. So you all have a great day. Take care, and as always, remember to like and subscribe and comment in particular. And I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen sometime soon, or in person at a convention. Hopefully even sooner. I am looking to get some more in-person gaming done within the next 4 to 6 months. So really excited about getting that going, and looking forward to getting more playtime in as a player, than just always running my own games. So you all have a great day. Take care.